Greetings, fellow makers. I have a few tips to share with you today. The main one is how to make a custom pouch with nylon webbing. It's not a class on how to do it step by step, but there are a few tips that you could find useful. The first one, of course, is using the nylon webbing. So nylon webbing is what you use for making straps for backpacks or traveling bags, all sorts of things. They're made of nylon. It's woven. It's super strong. It has many properties that can be useful for making puppets, by the way. I use them for hinges, especially for knees and elbows on puppets, because they don't tear, they don't dry out, they don't crack. They only tear if you slash them at some point, so don't slash them. They can be glued with contact cement, although I don't trust the bond of this flat against something weaker like a foam. You don't just stick that onto the foam by itself if it's outside of something. It's good if it's sandwiched between two pieces of foam, it's fine, because the foam will squish and hold into all these little textures with the contact cement. But if you just want to put a piece of this over a surface that stays exposed, then it will tend to peel off eventually. So I recommend to stitch this piece onto a piece of fabric, which is then of course glued with contact cement onto whatever object you have. But these guys are also great for making pouches or holders for tools and stuff. You can make your own belt accessories, because this super strong material can be stitched to itself and to other things as well. For example, I wanted to make a pouch today for a puppet I'm building. It's for inside the puppet to hold the eye controls. They're animatronic eyes. It's the last time I worked with that. It's problematic as heck, but at least you got to finish the project. So I needed a pouch to hold the controls when they're not being used. You know, when the hand is not in the head, when the puppet is filmed in other positions, such as when the actress is riding the puppet of a horse. So this pouch serves to hold those controls out of the way and securely, and of course protect them. So I needed something that was not too wobbly, not too flexible. I needed something that would hold things in place and protect them as well. So this little pouch is 2 layers of the nylon webbing. This is all I found this time. You can get them a bit wider, twice as big. I've never seen them as wide as the whole thing. So what I do in those cases is I zigzag stitch them together. So I use a setting of a length of 1 and a width of 6 on my machine, which I don't recommend. It's a Singer heavy duty. It's very strong. It does what it's supposed to do, but it has some limitations that I'm not a big fan of, so I don't recommend it. But you know, you don't need a heavy duty machine. You can use a regular Singer, and you know, any kind of other brand you want to use. But it works even for a weak machine. I've done pouches like this on my old Kenmore, which is the brand that Sears used to sell. I don't know if they still do, considering how many stores they closed. But anyways, I stitch them together side by side. I don't need to overlap them at all. You could, but it creates a texture, so I wasn't too careful. This time I have a bit of overlapping here, but it doesn't have to be pretty. It just has to be strong and functional in this case, because it's inside the puppet. But be careful, just stitch them next to each other very tight with some very tight zigzag stitches, and I do 2 passes to make sure. What I do is I develop it, you know, I create it wide open for as long as possible. When I'm installing the attachments in the back, which is in this case just an added piece of the same, I attach it before I close the thing. This is a simple pouch that's just one long piece that's folded over itself and then stitched to the sides. There is no bottom extra piece there. There are no side pieces. So for this reason, my pouch had to be a little bit wider to accommodate the narrower controls that are a bit thick. So this is plenty of space for them to fit any way they want to be fitted. Yeah, so I zigzag them. I make sure I have twice as long as I need so I can fold it onto itself to create the pouch effect. But before I really stitch it, I test it, make sure everything fits. Then I open it up and I stitch these extra pieces for attachment purposes. I should have thought about this flap here with the Velcro before I attached this one, and I did not. So that's great, because learn from your mistakes. I found this little trick that I'm going to use in the future. You can take a piece of the nylon webbing, fold it over itself, stitch it to itself as a triangular stitch, you know, a straight stitch that goes in a triangular place, you know, position, and then you can just stitch it to the plate, you know, to the actual back of the piece. So that's pretty cool. But before I stitched it there, I actually stitched the Velcro on the inside. So I also make sure that I use more Velcro on one of the two pieces of Velcro. I make a little bit taller so I can actually have some adjustments. It doesn't always have to be fully closed like this. It can actually be a little bit loose if you want. So these are all things that are useful. This pouch, like I said, is to hold the controls in place. They're really tight right now. I might even just leave it like this, but I don't think so. I'm paranoid. I like to finalize things. So once I'm sure of the positioning of it on the inside of the puppet, that's a piece of the mast that's going to be installed, so it's the same caliber. I'm going to put a hole above and below these two straps just to hold it in place. I could have put one just there, but just because I like symmetry, I'm going to put one here, and it will prevent it from going up or down. You could also decide to just put one at the bottom so you can always slide it up if you want. There are so many different things you can do with this. You can also glue it in place, but I don't like to use glue when I don't have to, because glue is messy. And should you change your mind later, it's better to unscrew something or unstitch something than leaving a trace of glue there. So I figured this would be useful for you. The first pouch I ever made out of this stuff, I think, was for a pocket knife, and I still have it somewhere. You can make your own pencil holders with this, brush protectors when you travel with your brushes. So nylon webbing is your friend if you want to know it. So zigzag stitches, I do two passes everywhere. Straight stitches as well, I try to do 2 passes, except for the Velcro, because sometimes you want to replace the Velcro, so as long as it's strong enough to stay there. If it's a large piece of Velcro like this, I put an X in the middle to make sure there's nothing in the middle that wants to lift and encourage the stitches from loosening up. So nylon webbing pouch, have fun with it. Oh, bonus trick, I meant to show you this. You can make puppet hair with these straps. I discovered that a few years ago. I don't think I've ever applied it, but I knew you could unravel strings. So one day I was pulling on a piece of nylon webbing, and I found out you could do the same with it. So since it's woven, it allows you to do a very nice soft kind of hair. So one of these ends, I don't know which one, every time is different. Can be that's not the one, I don't think, but I'll try again. Use a pin, you loosen up a side, then you pull on the string. Yeah, that's the good side. There's only one side that's going to work properly. So you pull it, and it unravels all the hair. It's like a loom. It is a loom. It's woven. So you're releasing all these hair. You can make. I just made some bangs for a puppet, but then you can keep on pulling, and eventually you'll have something super long, which often will be longer than whatever fur you can find on the market. Synthetic fur does not easily come in super long lengths. This is already longer than whatever I can find in the local stores. So this would take a while to create a big creature, but for effects that you want to add, or if that's the only thing you got, at least you have this solution. So hair bangs for a puppet, or just a whole wig of it if you want. Just don't unravel the whole thing. Once you're done pulling, leave a little bit of a root if you want it to be strongly attached to your puppet, and do a stitch, like a straight stitch that you go to 2 times, just to prevent it from unraveling anymore. Or you can keep on pulling and have some loose hair like this and attach them. I do both, actually. I like to finish the edges, blend the edges of whatever I'm covering with some loose like this. I use a very tacky type of glue. Could be contact cement. I've done it before. Acrylic medium, depending on the surface you're using, you want to change your adhesive, but something matte for sure, because you don't want it to be shiny and visible. But this is really soft and really nice looking. It's got this nice little crepe look, so I would think that this could be fun for a comical fake facial hair, like mustache or beard. So think about it. This is a really good stuff. It's very versatile, it's very strong, and apparently very fluffy and cute when you pull it as hair. Thank you for watching.